now the ones in the last row can hear something. Yeah, thank you. Let's see, I have to switch the monitor that I can see the next slide, sorry. Wrong direction. Okay. No. Okay, let's see if that works. Okay, the topic today, I was thinking about what to talk about and wasn't sure in the meantime how to get everyone involved, because I'm a Basis guy, so I will start with a short introduction of myself, what I'm doing, then getting over to my favorite topic I threw in every time. That's how to handle all the technical data we are working with, or I'm working with daily, and then heading over to some topics that was the initial idea of this talk, because when someone is asking me, okay, you're a Basis guy and the cloud is coming, so what are you going to do next year? There's no work to be done. And I think there are some what's called hoaxes around there, and what people think, what's happening, and I'd like to dig into that. Maybe something we can discuss later on at lunch and tonight with a beer, like we did last night. So I think some of the people who joined us yesterday in the pub know half of the session already, because I was getting into a flow. Let's see. So let's start. About me, handling daily data, about cloud, and about keeping the core clean. If you can't make that, I think Christian mentioned some points about this, his vision in his session already. So community events. So it's about me first. It's like a speaker's corner for me, so I'm pretty happy. Maybe someone knows that in London, someone stands up and talks about stuff he is interested in. So I'm very happy that you are joining me here. I think most of the time someone is standing there talking and no one is listening. That's me. I'm active in SAP user groups, so it's more my community focus since 1996. From Frankfurt area, so a little bit of advertising. We're doing the Stammtisch in Frankfurt, and we have already the announced date, Hendrik. End of March is correct, right?
Yep.
Last Saturday.
Last Saturday in March.
So we're going to do the Inside Track Frankfurt there. SAP mentor, and very proud that I finally made it, that the DSAG is from this year on taking freelancers as members. That was not possible all the years. I was pushing them all the time, and we now finally made it. So every freelancer, take care of that. You can be a member of the DSAG now. To characterize myself in a book title, I saw that and I thought, oh, that fits pretty well. So every time I see data somewhere with logs and timestamps, hopefully, web dispatcher logs or Displus works from the other stack, I always try to think, okay, there's so many data, and maybe there's something in we should take care of, but how to find out something. I'm not at the end of the journey. I think that's an ongoing task, and there are tools around, but sometimes it's about the tools and I'm not happy with the results. So my main topic is that, how to do that. I have a creative part, so maybe that explains sometimes why I'm doing all that. I have some crazy ideas to draw something like this with my feet when I don't have a pen with me. I will use the iPad when traveling by train. So that is all about me. I have one more. So when I see the real life like this, it sometimes happens in my mind that it goes like this in fantasy. So, and maybe that's the way I look on all the systems, and I have all the time ideas and visions how to get more out of all this data we have there in data centers and in the technical area. So I'm a technical architect, I'm a Basis guy. That's probably you need to know for the upcoming topics. So, what are the very own big data challenges I have? That's nearly at the technical topic. This is from the creative area. I do a lot of photos, and all the photos you probably have as well, somewhere in your on your iPhone or in the cloud, or maybe on old USB sticks or disks or whatever your backup concept was. And This is very comparable to what we have in our daily life. We have data, we have pictures, we have timestamps of the photos. And one task I had when I tried to collect all that together to see if I have some gaps in my history, and it would be pretty hard to find out when I'm retiring, and my plan is to sort them all then, because there's no time yet, that some years are missing, or some months are missing, or whatever, because some damn USB stick from some holiday was lying around somewhere else. So what I did is extracting the timestamps, getting them into months or weeks, and then visualize what I had since, I think that was 2001, and that was a gap around 2005. So that was my task to find out more. And this is the relation, what I very often do when I have some incidents in systems, some situations. I'm usually working somewhere in the second or third level with tasks, so something is coming up, someone fixed it probably, but then this question is still there: why did that happen? Did that happen before already? Is it going to happen again? What is really the background? It's not just set the parameter and it's okay, or just restart and it's okay, but to have a view to the history. And the tools I usually use are all these Unix tools, like an ls to first get all the data, then make an exif. This is the example from the picture topic. So as soon as I have all the data, so I said I love the logs, the result of the ls here, so this is the directory, and this is the extraction of data that is contained in the photos. Then it's part of all the tools, and I will mention some later on, like cutting and resorting and data cleansing. This is the first task. Recommendation: if someone is a command line freak and loves to find out some nice ideas, there's a good Twitter handle to follow. It's command line magic, and they mix pretty good stuff together sometimes to find out. This is the correlation to log files. List the top 50 error messages from requests to your website in descending order. I think this is daily business on our side. Now going over, I picked some 2 slides from a former presentation I did at the DSAG, when I tried to explain what kind of complicated data we really have. When I talk with the application people, the project leads, and the roadmap for our systems, we have some plans, and we have several releases. And the higher the level is, the more you see just one number. Maybe it's the S/4HANA release, for example. But further down, we have some more components to handle that. And just picking the SAP kernel, we have the OS version, we have the HANA releases, we have the HANA patches. So a lot of stuff there, but just focusing on the kernel, because I saw that a lot of time it was just mentioned, like 7.4. What did we have yesterday? 7.8 in the cloud. So sometimes just said this, and when you have a lot of basis people working in the basis department, they don't work all the same, and then even when they follow the same checklist, the result is differently. And that was in the project I did in one project where we had let's say 120 systems with maybe 400 instances to validate what are the kernel versions that are on the systems active. And the usual stuff is you make system status, see the kernel version, and then you're fine. This is the result you get with this command as well. So just one number, easy to handle, 400 times one value, that's okay. The problem is the reality looks a bit more complicated. The kernel itself is around 250 binaries lying down there. The main components are here. So when you do caching, you usually talk about these components, but at the end, behind each component, there are several other files. So if you are consistent with 2 systems, you have the same binary version on one system in the directory and on the other system. What I did is I collected all the data from all the instances. Let's see if I can zoom it in here. Not possible. Hopefully, oh, it's large enough, I guess. So just to get an idea, on top level there are all the system IDs, and this line down here are all the files I found in this directory where the kernel usually sits. And the idea was to make a hash code over each binary, and if two hash codes are the same, then the file is identical, and they get the same color. So every time one different color is occurring, then it's not the same binary. Taking it here, we have 3 times the same binary in 3 systems. Then here are some undefined other versions, whatever. It's not telling you it's higher or lower or whatever. It's just different. And then you have a pretty straight line. Some different colors are respected because you usually have something ongoing. Maybe a kernel patch started in the development system and didn't reach the production yet. So it always really depended on how you sort this matrix. And then you find old stuff like the last guy who made the kernel patch copied the old version from the R3 trans, for example, to old, and then this sits there and not in other systems. This is not affecting the system stability, but it happened a lot of times that it came up that upgrades were pretty fine in the development system, and in production it failed because the file system was just full, because there was 3 or 4 old versions of the system there. The first version was with red and green, and we tried to avoid that because every time someone on the upper level is just saying, oh, it's wrong, but it's not telling you what's wrong, it's just telling you it's different. And then your task is to find out, what's really happening there. So this is the, like data collection part, analyzing, trying to find out, go into the system, see what's really happening there, and after that, and this is one of the important messages I try to give to the customers on freelancer, is if you'd like to automate something, or if you'd like to monitor something or validate something, you first need to have a standard, and this needs to be valid. It makes only sense afterwards to do monitoring, because at the moment, I bet all the detailed monitoring tasks will fail because it's not the same everywhere. And even that. And this is just a part of the whole landscape. Recommendable, if you like to dig down with data and play around and visualize that. There are plenty of things. We had yesterday the code jam and we were talking about that. Someone was using the Jupyter notebooks, and I tried to mention some playgrounds that are usable for JavaScript in the browser. So what is the idea? You have a web page and you are able to run JavaScript source code there, and you have an editor and you have the result. I'm not a developer, so I'm always fascinated by what's possible there. All the JavaScript developers will say, oh, sure, I know that. But for us Basis guys, it's something not everyone is going there. And this is what I use as a playground to put my CSV data in or my JSON files in, and then use some examples that are existing somewhere to make my bar charts or whatever, bubble charts, or whatever you can think of. This is one way. And the step maybe before is how to handle all your logs and your data. I usually use RStudio, the Grafana we use when we like to have reports again and again, and the monitoring. The last time I made this session we had more time, so I went to each of the products to give you an idea how it works or explain the technology behind. So Grafana is visualizing collected data, time-based data, like Splunk. And Grafana is doing very good dashboards, and you can do very good ad hoc dashboards for that. We are monitoring, for example, all the HANA metrics there because we're not pretty happy with the HANA cockpit that is coming. D3.js, it's more a framework, it's not a tool. This is the magic behind the heat map, I would say, we had before. JQ is a pretty important tool to handle on command line JSON files, because JSON is one of the main formats D3.js is using, because it's not just flat, because you have more structures and more hierarchies. So it was hard for me in the beginning to handle all or reformat the JSON files, and JQ is a good command line tool for that, running on Mac as well. I have, depending on the time, some slides to explain that. I think we skipped that. And some more straight from the elevator. So when I was showing Frank is here. Frank's away. Frank, still in the elevator? He's still there, okay.
No, not still, again.
Again, okay. He mentioned an XSV tool, so I got new ideas from here. That's the great thing of an inside track. You just take something with you, and here XSV was one and Q was the other one, to dig and handle CSV files like an SQL database. so doing like selects. Skipping that, that's a JQ tool, an example how to handle a JSON file and extract the data. So this is, I guess, everything that's related to how to visualize data. Now going to the technical part, what is my daily business and what are we going to do even when the cloud is coming, in which flavor ever. To handle all the systems in data centers, we use one tool from SAP, that's the SAP Landscape Manager, it's called Llama. And this tool is able to handle all the infrastructure components around. So the core thing is they are able to detect on hosts which SAP instances are running there, from the database up to the application and the web dispatcher and what else, Cloud Connector nowadays, and make that visible in an UI that was Java Intro in the past. It's now UI 5, and they are able to have APIs to storage and to vSphere. And no matter where it is, if it's in your data center, it's controlling the systems there. If your SAP system is running with Google Cloud or Amazon, they are doing the same because they are just using the startup framework of the SAP system. And this is one of the messages I usually give when someone's saying, okay, when the systems all go to the cloud, if it's just infrastructure as a service, it's the same business. It doesn't care if it's on-premise. I usually don't touch the server daily, really never. Someone else is doing that. So the cloud is just another platform for me to handle. And this is the way to get all the data. So going further to visualize all the things we have and make clear what it is, you can one hand download the data from the UI. That is just for prototype maybe, just to see. But what we do is extending the SAP standard product and use all the APIs in the system. So the Llama can be extracting data. You can extract data from the Llama, and you get all the detailed information from memory usage, CPU usage, and this is what one of the core things we have at the moment when we are shifting data centers around to the cloud or just to another co-location. It's pretty important to get a better overview over your systems than the ones you probably had in an Excel sheet or somewhere else, wherever you keep your landscape information. Let's skip this. So yeah, this was one of the core messages from the automation and standards and validations, because the promised benefits you have when you go to the cloud, I often hear is that you are able to automate better or easier or whatever. And what I often see is that customers are not really doing their homework with automation in their own on-premise data center already. So it's pretty unfair to compare that. So when they just move to the cloud and are not doing the automation stuff, like provisioning their systems based on APIs, and someone is just entering the data and creating a VM, it's pretty much the same like you do on-premise. So this is not the benefit. What we do, for example, on one customer side, we measure the resource consumption of all the systems, and as soon as we see some system needs more or less, we have a weekly or 4 weekly for each system interval where we are able to restart the system and adapt the resource consumption from the VMs to have that really optimized. The problem is, even when someone is explaining the cloud is very scalable, it's still an SAP system. I'm talking about an S4, on an R3 system, on Java Stack. They are not so flexible to react on changes in their VM, and they don't do that in the cloud either. So yeah, it's always something you have to do, and you can do that on premise as well. So I don't see the benefit here. Hurrying through that one, just one example because that came up the last 2 weeks, where I said, okay, that fits probably to what I'm doing here. Handling all the certificates and security files. Maybe the other people know the S-Trust. You have one SAP system that works usually with 6 hopefully signed PSEs from a CA somewhere, from a PKI, and SSLS, AC system, web dispatcher, host agent, and each of them has a known certificate list. And when you check it out for your systems, the list that is here in the middle part is most of the time very different from development beginning to production to all the systems, because usually someone has a problem, tries to fix something, try to import the certificate from the other side, finds out, oh, I was in the wrong tree element on the left side, then he's going to the correct one and it works afterwards. But cleaning up is usually not done. So one big thing to do then is to find first collect the data, find out what's going wrong. Do we really have an issue, or are we pretty clear? And then to recreate that. And that was another approach I did last week to collect all the data to find out similarities. Which of these public certificates is already in a PSE file? Which is not there? Is it okay that's not there? Is it probably not used? So when I find something in development, in QA, and not in production, then it's valid to ask, can we remove it in the other systems? Are they just on their way to productive usage, so they need it later on? And the idea is here to first have the collection, and then afterwards have this standard, what we expect that it's there, and then use colors for the visualization to make clearer which is okay, which is not. Then maybe we go to red and green again. That's something to see. And the great thing is all the the tools to visualize are pretty powerful, because you can change whatever you like. You can make not a circle out of it, you can make a square of it to reflect something. You can change the border size, you can change the color of the border of the inside part. So I think this is, for me, always the only chance to make the situation clear this way. You can dig in Excel sheets, you can group, you can filter, but then you really have to know what you're looking for. And if you like to present someone on an upper level, or just a colleague next to you who's not doing handling these technical objects daily, then you need to present him in a way that he has a chance to check them. Okay, now coming to the last two sections in just 4 minutes. Let's see. The most important things I like to pick on, I think it's not the UI part, I'm not the expert here. Let's just make that as a nice thing. At TechEd time in Barcelona, there was a nice thing when I checked in at the hotel in all the UI5 and Fiori times, and we saw that this hotel checked me in and was entering this screen, and even better, had a really good overview about their room occupations. So what I could see is that I think each column was a level in the hotel, and all the rows are the room numbers in the hotel. And as far as I could see, there's something like the room number in the occupation. I think it was even used for the cleanup stuff. And yeah, I was wondering how that would look like in a Fiori UI. Maybe you need to scroll down a bit more. That's the thing I have to mention. So this is more the important thing. Moving to the cloud to save money, I think this is the big message at the moment. But to really see what does that mean, where are you coming from? If you are already optimized in your data center, and you did the stream, and you did virtualization, and you are optimizing your systems and taking care of them, and maybe do some automations with system copies, then you already are pretty close to what you could change when going to the cloud. Even then there you have to implement that. And what are you talking about? From my side, I'm always talking about the infrastructure as a service, because when I compare Google Cloud Platform and shifting SAP systems over, then they are just providing the CPU and the memory, and then every other task is still the same for me. So even when the systems are running somewhere else. One argument is always the cost efficiency and the scalability. We mentioned the scalability. The SAP system itself is not very scalable under the day, so the resources stay the same you use. And a very interesting tweet was from someone, a nice Twitter feed. They really did a migration of all the systems to Amazon, and they were asking in Twitter to get feedback. What was your experience when you did this step, like evaluating the cloud? And the interesting thing was most of them were over budget. I think this is not representative because it's just 65 votes, but it is not that it's just easy going and you just win. And the color green means I have 5 minutes?
It's yellow and it's 5.
Okay. One interesting thing, because let's say the main argument that was mentioned at the TechEd, there was a nice event, migration to hyperscalers. SAP was driving that and had some pretty good people there to explain different aspects of that. But one aspect that is always in the beginning is, because you know that when you are a consultant company, for example, and have on Amazon your system, and you say, oh, I don't need it at night time because no one is developing, I just shut it down, and then I save money. And this killer argument is taken and just scaled over all landscapes from all customers. And then you say, oh, let's have a look at the customer side in a data center. It's not so easy to shut systems down regularly. So what components do we have? We have the resource consumption, CPU total, memory total, disk total. Take the whole data center of a medium-sized company. Then this is distributed in different sections. So production uses, let's say, 35%. The QA and the integration system uses the same because most of the time the production is copied over, so it's the same size. Maybe they reduce the application part of it, so the CPU and the memory could be different, but the disk total is the same. This total is always counting, even when you shut down systems in the cloud. Then you have some dev systems and you have sandbox and trial systems. And the easy step is to shut down sandbox and trial systems for time, for night, for example. So when we have a look at, you can shut them down, so you save the CPU and the memory, you don't save the disk total. And so I would say when this is 10% of your whole amount of resources you use, and shut them down half the time, then you save 5% in total. Yeah, take this and see how it's in your environment. If you have a big consulting company and really developing just or make demo systems more than productive systems, then it turns around, but then the whole thing is not so big. Shutting down system always means you have to handle all the connections. So monitoring systems, tell them they don't have to alert because you shut it down regularly. You have to automate that. In one scenario I heard that they implemented this shutdown thing, but someone in an offshore country was just pressing the button at 5 o'clock to shut it down, and short before 8 he had on his list, okay, I have to start up the system again. I don't know if that is really the efficiency that is not promised, what to be expected. And just one thing to add, this is still yellow. I keep on with the multi-cloud thing. That was another message I took from the session, and I was sitting there and said, that can't be true, that it's told like this. The idea was, or the message was that 84% of enterprises have a multi-cloud strategy. Maybe I get it wrong, but for me that would mean, when you take it for car fleet, for example, in your company, usually you try to focus on one brand or one provider for your leasing cars. You don't say, oh, I like a multi-brand car fleet and multi-provider things. That creates effort. So on the customer side, it's usually a process to evaluate which of the cloud providers are the ones that fit best to your strategy, and then you pick one, and then you optimize on one. If you try to optimize it for 3, you have just not 3 times the efforts, but more efforts. And this is something, maybe someone can explain me what customers mean with that they have a multi-cloud strategy. Maybe it means just they are open in the beginning, that's okay. But at the end they have to make the decision. Keep the core clean, yeah, that was the thing. Unfortunately missed the part from Christian, but we had yesterday in the pub, every time we keep the core clean. So when you go to an S4 system and we try to develop everything on the outside part, we get rid of the garbage we find in the ABAP stack to make the upgrades smoother. And this is pretty good for someone who's doing the operation stuff. But what I'm wondering is why we didn't do that all the time already. And I really fear the times that coming up in 5 or 10 years when all the applications that are running somewhere else with bring your own language or whatever, if that really will be easier to handle that. Because my experience was in all the years when I did upgrades, yes, you have to take care of the stuff that is in conflicts in the system itself, but the next round is you have to take care of all the interfaces that are coming in, and that is usually not so high in the beginning, but you will always have 5 or 10 business critical interfaces. But from today's perspective, in 10 years, the number would increase very much. And I don't see at the moment that on the customer side, the documentation spirit is going so much higher that it's easy to handle in 5 or 10 years. And having the developer who made this fancy state-of-the-art today language stuff somewhere in the cloud, in a container somewhere, no idea. I have no idea how to contact them. Nowadays I go to my RFC destinations or my web service providers and see what is there for an interface. I know them, I know who to contact, but I'm not sure how this will look like in some years. So this is the unanswered part for me from the keep the core clean strategy. This is pretty red. Thank you very much. If anyone is going there, I always like to learn from the development part or from the software architect part if I'm wrong somewhere and if there's hope somewhere. So contact me at lunchtime or today in the pub. Happy to discuss further. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christian, for your great session. The plan now is